It's the people, then me. So I work for the people. My boss or bosses are all 189,000 citizens between Pitt and Edgecombe County. So it's them that give me my direction and not the other way around.
Why do you think some officials forget that? Welcome to the first episode of From the Ground Up, where I will be diving into the stories of our leaders and change makers who are putting into work every day to create change in our communities. And I'm your host, Rashana Carmen. And today I have someone with me that I'm super excited about speaking with to get her story. She's committed to improving lives in North Carolina. Representing District 5, Pitt and Edgecombe County, Senator Smith, thank you for being here with me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, before we really get into it, I want to do a little icebreaker.
Okay.
I want you to tell the people something that might surprise them to learn about you.
I think the most recent thing that I've been in conversations with people about is they've been surprised when they found out that I was a black belt.
Like karate?
Taekwondo.
You can get down.
I can do what I need to do. So
Black
they
belt,
were
wow.
talking about that today. They was like, what? You're a black belt? It's like, yeah, black belt in Taekwondo. And then I have an honorary black belt in, I think it's Kikkoran.
Okay.
And then I'm going to get another honorary black belt in Taekwondo just because they want to give it to me. So I'll have 3 black belts, one with Kandie Smith, one with Mayor Kandie Smith, and the other one with Senator Kandie Smith.
Okay.
So I was like, okay,
I would have never expected that.
I know. But it's just, I think the thing is, people see you in the position as a politician, and I'm really a public servant, an advocate. But they see you in that position so much, they tie you to that position, and sometimes they don't see you for who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So when you ask me, that's the first thing that popped in my mind because I've had several conversations today about it. Black belt in Taekwondo, and have been for several years. And then I also train in crisis management.
Okay.
And I train some of the physical capabilities of being able to get away from people, even if you're like trapped on the ground, and how to defend yourself without getting hurt. But that would be my fact that people may not know about me.
All right. So I want you to take us back to like before Senator Smith. Like, where did it all begin for you?
I've always been an advocate for the people. My mother brought that to my attention. When she came to see me being sworn in at the city council for the first time, she said she's always been somebody to fight for other people, trying to take up for other people. Being a Libra, I like to see people getting along, things being balanced. I don't like it when it's the other way around. I don't like when people are being taken advantage of. I've always been one of those kind.
Yeah.
I was the oldest of 4 children, and I was always taken up for them and others, especially when I was in school and I noticed there was a bully or something, and I would say something.
Right.
Now, I was the shortest thing, but I had no fear. So I think that was probably the beginning. Besides that, I would say my church. Because in church, I learned to speak. I learned to get in front of people, stand in front of people, say my speeches, Happy Easter, 3 wise men followed the star. So I learned all of that. And then I was in different events where you had to do plays or different skits. And so my mother would tell me, I learned this poem when I was a child, so I learned it. I learned the 66 books of the Bible, so I learned it. So those experiences made me feel more comfortable speaking in front of people. So already been an advocate for people, then I was not as afraid to speak in front of people. And then I guess from there in school, I played sports, track, cross country, and I played basketball. I was in college. But I interacted. I never met a stranger. I was always talking to people. And my senior year in college, I ran for school treasurer. For me, when they said they gave free room and board, I said, and I really don't have to touch the money. It's just in position, in name. Kandie Smith, the treasurer. That holding that elected position allowed me to understand more about how to serve my peers in the class. And so I guess that helped out.
Yeah.
But some of these things I didn't even think about until later. In retrospect, that I look back and say, wow, I guess I did run for different things. And then as far as Delta, which I'm sure everybody knows that I'm a Delta, I'm a former chapter president, but I started as a treasurer. Yeah. I ran as a treasurer of the chapter first, served a couple of terms as a treasurer, and then I moved on up as positions go to like vice president and then president. And I still serve as a social action chair. Although I am an elected official, I'm never too busy to make sure that I still do public service.
That's right.
I think that's the rent we pay to live on this earth. So I think those experiences helped me to get to where I am today.
And I think that's the next question I was going to ask. What was it that maybe you learned from your parents or mentors that were around you that prepared you for where you are now?
That there's no limits. Sometimes, unfortunately, we have people, teachers, educators tell people what they can't do or what they don't feel like they can do. I don't think I've had that situation, only because I've been very vocal for a very long time. And if there are certain things I want to do, I always love the challenge. So I would accept the challenge. Being competitive, it's like I'm going for it. So when I told my mother there was a trip to Ontario with the French Club, and I said, I want to go. I knew I had younger siblings at home. My mother couldn't afford. And so she said, how are you going to get there? And we had like donut sales. I said, oh, I'm going to do what I have to. So I sold my donuts and all my friends' donuts because they could afford it. And I went to Ontario. We had a great time. No, it wasn't Ontario, it's Toronto.
Okay.
But we had a great time. I was always driven. And I think that being driven has helped me to be where I am today. Because I never thought about being an elected official. I want you to think that I went on that political science path. I did not. I registered when I was 18. I had no choice. My mother didn't play that like I wish others didn't. She felt like I had a responsibility. And so she trained me that when you become of age, it is important that you get out and vote because your vote is your voice. I think just those life experiences help prepare me to be driven, to be willing, and to step out. And then not be afraid to lose. I think that gets a lot of people. They become so afraid. Oh my gosh, what if I don't win? What if you don't? You learn lessons in everything that you do. And if you look at most successful business owners, they failed before they became successful. But when you look at failure, it's not really the failure that we believe in our heart. What it is, a life lesson of how to do it better the next time.
That's good. So you think really like this life chose you pretty much?
It did choose me. It did. I went to an event when I moved here and I was listening, watching everything that was happening. And someone said to me, you should run for city council. Guess what I said? What's city council? I didn't really know. And they explained to me and I said, how long are the terms? They told me it was 2 years. And I was only here 3 years by then, almost 3 years. It was 2.5 years. And I said, let me think about it.
How long did it take you to think about it?
Oh, the very next time the elections rolled around, 2 years later.
You're ready.
But I'm not gonna say I was ready because sometimes if we wait until we're ready, we may never be ready. But I was approached and said, you gonna run? I said, huh? He said, you said you was gonna run. I said I was gonna
think about it.
But my think about it, it was cut short of thinking. And it was the last day of registering to run for office.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I'd like to be a woman of my word. So I went and I registered to run. And I ran that year. And it was the incumbent who was in office was there for 22 years. I worked hard. And at the very end, I won that election by 12 votes. So it chose me. I didn't choose it. And I was here 4.5 years, almost 5 years. So it was just the very next election. Sometimes we need someone to push us. More importantly, to hold us accountable. It was that accountability.
Yes.
When they said you said you were going to think about it.
Yes.
I did say it.
You
but
did.
I didn't say how long.
Because that think could have been a year later, 2 years later.
Yeah. No, that think could have been 6 years later.
Could have been.
2 terms. Let me really pay attention this time.
Yeah.
But they said something to me, and it was ironic. On the very last day of filing, they didn't say anything the whole time. I didn't even think about it because I didn't know it was filing. Thought you was going to run. And I ran.
Yeah.
So I say it was in God's plan.
Yeah.
So I have been serving ever since.
So if you can just walk us through like your early stages when you were in the local government, like were there any challenges you faced in the beginning? And like, how did you overcome it?
Were there challenges? Oh my goodness. Okay. So I ran and was the council member for District 1, which is downtown,
Okay.
across the river. I call it North Greenville now. We're
Like
trying to
past North
rebrand it.
Pitt?
Not as far as North Pitt, because North Pitt is in the county.
Okay.
So everything in the city across this bridge, West Greenville on this side, uptown area, downtown area, this side of it as well, going towards the east, Town Commons, all of that. That was my district. I ran, and in my mind, I said either my opponent is going to have to work or I'm going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And if I win, I know automatically my work ethic, I'm going to work. So my opponent did a lot of good, and it's a democracy. And so when I was asked, I yielded to the ask and I ran and I served. And so I spent a lot of time learning the town, learning the people. My first campaign manager would not allow me to run, or let me say, would not agree to be my campaign manager unless I met with everybody she gave me a list of.
Yeah.
So most people know my campaign manager was Kandie,
Okay.
my very first one. And she wrote out a list about this long. And it was a list of people who had served, people who had not served, but they were pillars in the community. And they had history in this community. And she said, you need to talk to each and every one of them. She said, until you sit and talk to each and every one of them, I will not be your campaign manager. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
And I wish other campaign managers would do that. So I did that, and that gave me a lot more information instead of me just sitting in a seat and voting without knowledge. So they told me a lot about the city, what was happening. And in my very first term, I did have some challenges. I'm sure most people know. I was visiting uptown or downtown or whatever you call. And it was after I had just driven back from a scholarship banquet in Raleigh. And I wanted to walk around because during the summer, it's almost bare. But when it's not summer, those students are everywhere. And I think I felt a little intimidated to go down when it was so many college students. But this time I was on my way home, coming through the uptown area, and I said, oh, not that many students.
Yeah.
I can finally walk my district and see what it's about and what it's like. And the uptown area with the bars and the restaurants, that was my district with District 1. So I got out and put my tennis shoes on and proceeded to walk around and ran into some young ladies that I coached basketball, because I used to coach at U.
Okay.
I also coached at ECU, their girls club basketball team. Okay. So I was talking to them, and the next thing I was confronted by an officer, and he asked some questions and told me that I couldn't be there. And I asked if I could go to another place, would I be okay? And he said no, and I was a little confused. And he said, but here's trespassing. And I looked around and I said, I was at a store and the store was open. So I said, I don't see any no trespassing signs. And I was at a store because it's the Stop and Shop. And next thing I know is I was choked from behind and arrested and said it was trespassing. And so I had to go through that ordeal, which is something I did not and would not ever prescribe for anybody. I received a lot of calls, and a lot of family members from students who attended ECU called me. And this was people of many races, nationalities. They called me and said, thank you. And I said, for what? They said, for not making it racial, because I didn't make it racial if it was wrong. I stood my ground on what happened. So after about a month and a half, I went to court, had a trial. It was all day. No room for anybody to really come into the courtroom because it was packed. And we went through that trial. I was found not guilty. And I continued my fight. That was probably the only year where I didn't have a challenger when I ran for re-election.
Wow.
And but I don't run from standing up for people, fighting for people. I fought, did what I had to do, but that was a challenge, but it was also a life lesson. I think it gave me a different perspective. So when people tell me some of their challenges and what has happened to them, I can see it differently. Where sometimes when you sit on one side, you may not be able to see the other side.
That's right.
So I just taught a class yesterday on implicit bias. We all have them. It's how we were raised and the different experiences we've had in life. And so sometimes our biases have us to think certain ways until we have different experiences. That experience taught me a lot. I met a lot of people who said to me, you know what, I'll support you any day. He said, because you're real, or you don't mind standing up.
That's
you
right.
don't mind. And so many people who probably wouldn't have talked to me otherwise would talk to me, share issues, share concerns in my district, which I really appreciated because that gave me the opportunity to do my job.
Yes.
To open and honestly do my job.
Wow. It developed a little bit more empathy in you.
It did. It did. To look at how someone else may be walking in their shoes. And if I had those on, how would I be walking? I had a chance to hear a lot of things I probably wouldn't have been open to hear. I probably would have been, you shouldn't have been doing that.
Right.
And it's easy to say that.
Yes.
Until I looked at my experience, I wasn't doing anything. I was actually doing my job as an elected official, surveying the area, and that happened to me. So if it happened to me, it could happen to anyone. I received a lot of calls from people from out of town who said, that happened to me. Thank you so much for standing up. And I felt embarrassed for our city because I felt like that should not have happened. Not because it should not have happened to me, but to anybody else who were visiting from outside, coming into our city, wanting to enjoy the amenities, like we want them to spend money to experience anything like that.
Yeah.
That was a challenge, but it didn't hold me back.
That's right.
It didn't stop me. Yeah. I continued to serve and to hear more stories from different people and to work with City Council to make changes so that we can improve our police department, so that we can make sure that we have the appropriate training for our police officers, so that we can push community policing. So it's been a long road, but it's been one that I will say is well worth it because you don't hear those same stories now. I'm not saying that we have our officers are 100% because we have a lot of new officers and they look so young to me. I hear less of what I heard when I first started serving, which is always good.
That's good.
When you have progress. Now, there's always things that we can work on and we're going to continue to work on, but it was not for naught.
I want to shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about your leadership. There's a quote that I really love by Dr. Miles Monroe. It says, your values produce your morals inform your ethics shape your character, and your character controls your life. Now, what I want to ask you is, what values do you have at your core that shape how you live your life?
I think the values that I have is loyalty to a fault. I'm working on that. But loyalty, honesty, integrity, and accountability. I'm not going to say those are easy things because it's hard to be held accountable.
Yes.
But those are the morals that I really like to stick to. Because to me, when you have that integrity, that honesty, that loyalty, what you do have is you have transparency. Yeah. The more transparency you have, the better it is to do your job.
And when you making decisions for your constituents, I mean, your district or just in general for people in North Carolina, how do they guide your decisions?
Because it allowed me to be more open and to interact with people. While doing so, I would hear the stories I needed to hear. Yeah. I would hear the questions and the concerns. I would hear the things that needed to be worked on. So therefore, it was not me, it was what they were sharing with me.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons why Dee Dee encouraged me to make sure that I met with people. I reached out and interviewed, because when you sit in that seat, whichever, if it's on the local, if it's on the state or the federal, you're not sitting for yourself, you're sitting for the people. And so if you truly operate that way, that means you should be listening to the people. So I do my best not to run from people. Now, sometimes, am I not around? Absolutely. I'm in Raleigh. I'm voting in Raleigh. But I try to make as many events that I can make. I interact with as many people as possible. I encourage people to call my office to tell me if they have issues or concerns. Constituent service is probably number one for me, and I do everything I can to help. And if it's something that I really can't help with, guess what I do? I try to point them into the right direction, because I can't say, I can't help you, because they don't want to hear that. I try to point them at least into the right direction. Right. Sometimes I just want to listen so that they can know that they have support.
And I think that's great, because sometimes I feel like when it comes to our elected officials, it's like we vote, we get them in the office, and then it's like, they Houdini.
Like, where are they? Do they just
never see them again until it's time for another election? Why is that, Senator? And why do we as constituents
accept that?
Accept it. Why do we do that?
Now, let me tell you, it depends upon where you are, state or federal. You may be away more. Because when I was on the city council, I was connected to the people, boots on the ground. I was right there. I would see them in the food lines. I would see them in Piggly Wiggly. Different places I would see them. But then when I moved to the state level, to the House, I was in Raleigh voting and working, so I didn't see them as much. But when I was invited to things, the things that I could attend, I would attend. so that I could see them. And so those at the federal level having town halls, just to still stay connected is key. When I was on the city council, I always tried to have town halls. I'd have them in person. And if I couldn't, I'd have them by Zoom.
Right.
When we were voting on the budget, when I was in the House, I would find a place at the community college and have a meeting and invite people and say, this is what we're talking about. What are your thoughts? How should I vote on it? I would do that because it's not about me.
That's right.
Because if we look at the whole pie chart, it's the people, then me. Yeah. So I work for the people. My boss or bosses are all 189,000 citizens between Pitt and Edgecombe County. So it's them that give me my direction and not the other way around.
Why do you think some officials forget that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I don't walk that walk, so it's hard for me to speak to it. Like I go to churches on Sundays. I spend time at my church, but I'll try to take one Sunday out of the month, sometimes two, and I'll go to a different church. And people say, is it election time? No.
Yeah.
They say, so it's not election time?
Right.
Nope. And you're coming? I believe in meeting the people where they are.
That's right.
And where do you find the most concentrated group of people? Churches. So I'll go visit churches, white, black, Hispanic, doesn't matter. Methodist, Baptist, Lutheran, doesn't matter. Yeah, I'll go and introduce myself. I am your state senator. If you don't know who I am, it's harder for you to reach out to me, isn't it?
That's true.
So those are the things I do. When the pandemic hit, I put my information up so that people could reach out to me, came to unemployment. And you put your number, so yes, my job is to help them out.
That's right.
So state is not easy to navigate, and I know that. So my job is to do all that I can to help them navigate.
Now, Senator, I know there's a lot always happening at the General Assembly. It's always something spicy going on up there. Listen, if you could...
You said it, I didn't.
But what I want to ask you is, what's going on right now in Raleigh, and just in the General Assembly, that you think people should know about? And how are these things going to possibly affect the people? If you can share something with us.
The budget.
The budget, yes.
The budget started in the Senate this biennium. So every 2 years it switches chambers. So this term is started in the Senate.
Okay.
The next term in 2 years it'll start in the House. So when you say what's going on, man, it's crazy.
Yes.
In the Senate, we received the budget 6 p.m. last Monday. 6 p.m.
Wow.
It was sent to us by link. Tuesday, we went into the office and had our book. And that's when we got a chance to sit with over 400 pages and try to figure it out and ask staff for questions for clarification. The very next day, Wednesday, we were voting on a budget. It was a 5-hour debate, over 50 amendments. If you have that many amendments, that lets you know that there was no collaboration as it should have been. So it's not really what's in the budget, because sometimes people look, we have a $66 million budget with a B. And people look at it and say, oh, money's going here, money's going there. It's not really, with this budget, not what's in the budget, it's what's not in the budget. A lot of things have been cut, which is unprecedented. Like the Boys and Girls Club have been funded for the last probably 15 to 20 years. No funding right now in the budget. Food banks, no funding in the budget. The historically underutilized business that we have, we call it Hub.
Yeah.
Got rid of
Gone.
them. They have 6 staff, getting rid of all of them. They have to roll over to another position, apply for another state position. It's so many things that's been cut. But at the same time, we're given year after year an increase in opportunity scholarships. So it was at $500 million last 2 years. But every year, if we're going to continue to increase, and that's what the money is supposed to be doing, imagine how much money that is that we're giving. And that means that's taken away from our public school. It is one of those situations is very unfortunate. But I will say this, it starts in the Senate, it goes to the House. And then after the House, that's when there's a conference committee that's appointed. So members from the House, members from the Senate, then they have to come together and iron it out and figure out what can we work with. No one's ever going to get 100% of what they want. So that's very spicy right now because people are calling. And then the tax cuts for the wealthy. Let me say this, 2 things. We're focusing on giving tax cuts to the wealthiest, and we're not taking care of those who I would say just the common man who's working, middle class, out here grinding, doing what they need to do. We're having to pay all the taxes, but those who can afford to just pay their share, we're giving cuts left and right so they don't have to. So if they actually paid those taxes and that money came in, that's money we would be operating from. We would still be doing things. But if you keep cutting for them, after a while, those cuts, they really matter. And we already have the disaster, Hurricane Helene, in the western part of North Carolina, and we're fighting. We've only given like $1.5 billion to them, but that project's going to be at least $6 billion. Roads are torn up. Businesses are decimated. Homes, it's the largest disaster in the U.S. And I know that North Carolina has ever seen, but mainly in U.S., it's the most devastating. Just to think about that happening in the mountains and going downhill and people losing their lives and losing their homes, and it's unheard of. So we have to spend money on that as well. So that makes it an extreme challenge with our budget. But when you're doing pet projects and doing things that's not taking care of North Carolinians as a whole, but it may be just specifically only one district, that's a challenge. Now, when we start looking at the DOGE Act, that's at the federal level, it's all about efficiency, they say.
Yes.
We have the DAVE Act. So they're modeling what's happening at the federal level, and they're trying to do the same thing that's happening at the federal level at the state level. If you start looking, if you look in our Senate budget that we sent to the House, there was a number of positions that were cut. And I was told that it was positions that were not, they didn't have anyone in it for 6 months, so that's why they cut them. But when I spoke with some of the secretaries, they said some of those slots, we were able to use some of those monies to keep and retain the people that we have.
Yeah.
Because the private sector can pay more and the state doesn't pay the same. But we were able to still keep those funds from some of those positions to help fund some of these workers. Not to mention, we're understaffed. And so when we get those people, then we're going to have the money for them to take care of. North Carolina's still top for businesses to come, but we cannot forget the middle class. We cannot say, let's just cater to the businesses only, because you don't have a business without the people. Remember that. So we have to strike a more delicate balance to make sure that everybody's being taken care of. And we can do that if we truly wanted to. But we have some people who are in their goal is to be so much like our current president administration that they forget the people. So whenever we can make cuts and save money and do things more efficiently and effectively for all 100 counties, let's go for that. But when you just decide all haphazardly to stop every program and then say, oh, we got to hire you back. We didn't mean to stop you. We got to hire you back. Sorry.
We didn't mean to let you go. That's unfortunate. So, Senator, what have you been working on lately for your district?
I've been, number one, doing a lot of tours in my district. That's the main thing, because people want me to know what they're doing, what they're bringing to the district. So today we just had the grand opening at Boviet Solar, and they have about 900 more jobs they're about to add. So that's economic development, workforce development. I am excited about that. I saw people working. They have about 200 people already working. So being able to go to those groundbreakings and those announcements and announcing these jobs, that's been key, not just in Pitt County, but also in Edgecombe. Natron, the battery company, announcement for them. I got both counties. They booming. Both counties are booming. I like that. But I've been visiting like Grady White. I went to the new sheriff's station because I've not seen it since the new building was there. I was in Raleigh. When people call me, I go typically. I've been going to some of the farms in Edgecombe, in Kandie, in Tarboro, going to visit so the farmers, the small farmers, can tell me what their challenges are with their crop, how they're losing money. If you look at the state budget, more money from our state budget goes to agriculture than anything else. You know why? We got to live.
We got to live.
You can't just go to Piggly Wiggly or a Food Lion and think that, oh, if I go there, I'm going to get what I need. All of that stuff starts on the farm. So we have to give credit where credit should be due. And those farmers work very hard to take care of us. So I've spent some time on a couple of farm tours, seeing what they have, checking out what's going on, and again, constituent services. So one thing that I have done lately is there's money that a lot of people don't even realize they have. And it's been in my district, several thousand, couple of thousand. But from my office, I'm sending letters out for anyone who has $100 or more to let them know that you have these funds. It could be a bank went defunct and they got your money. Could be someone wrote a check and it never really, your money is there. Just so many different reasons, but the state, they hold on to that money. And so people want it. When they see letters, I tell them it's not fake.
It's not.
Because I get calls all the time. Is that someone texted me and said, is this letter real? Yes, it is real. So we're in some trying times. Anything I can to put money back in people's pockets to help them out, I'm going to do what I can. So I've been working on that between both Pitt and Edgecombe counties. And so I only have a few more left to give out. So I've been doing that. Also been trying to work on some of the development that's happening, especially in North Greenville. Ever since I've served on the city council, it's been a passion of mine to have a drugstore, a pharmacy, to have other eateries in our area in North Greenville. So I've been working on that as well. It's important. Going to schools, interacting with the students. I substitute teach sometimes.
Okay.
So I get a chance to see what's going on with them, and the teachers get to talk to me firsthand. Then they say, this is what's going on, that's what's going on. I'm on the education committee, so I get a chance to hear from them as well. And I'm also the chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, and that does not really give me as much free time.
Okay.
As others may have. It keeps me busy.
Yes.
We are, because we represent all 100 counties. So for the minority populations, all 100 counties. And we have 41 members. So I am working with them to ensure that we have that connectivity with the local elected officials, from the county commissioners to the town councils to the city council, and then all the way up having a connection to the caucus at the federal level.
Right.
I've been working on that, and it's been no time to just sit and waste, because issues are real, problems are real, people are hurting. So I've been trying to do what I can do to be a bridge. That's what I say I've been working on. And fighting, because that budget, I offered 5 amendments. One of them was about earned income tax credit, but
they
it was
weren't having
tabled.
it. Yeah, I read that. Why do they like to table stuff so much? That's like their favorite term. Let's table it.
Table it, you don't have to vote on it.
No, we need to vote and talk.
But the reason why they table it is so the public, if they don't take a vote on it, the public don't know really what they don't take a vote on.
That's my
Unless
problem.
you dig it up to see what was tabled. But if they voted on that amendment and then they had to say no or something like that, people will go back later and say, what? No.
And they already try to hide and not keep the videos up, Senator. That's a whole another conversation. The lack of transparency.
We don't have video in the Senate.
Yes.
It's only in the House.
Yes.
But when it's over, video's
gone. Nowhere to be found. Okay. And
we have audio in the Senate.
Yes.
Sometimes they turn that off too. Let me tell you something. It is a challenge, but I encourage people to make sure you stay engaged. Ask questions. Get involved in your community. When they say, how? There's a lot of organizations doing things, but get involved in your precinct.
Yeah.
Because they're right there. The precinct are the neighborhoods lumped together for a voting site. That's your precinct.
That's right.
And so you get a chance to talk about what may be happening in your area. What do you want? What do you like? What do you don't like? And who do you want to represent you? But they give you a lot of that information. So I'm just trying to do what I can to help educate people.
That's right. And you're
we
always
need to
doing
wait
that.
until it's an election time.
That's right.
We need to educate them right now.
That's right. And I feel like you're always doing that. You're always pouring into people with your knowledge and just resources or whatever. Why is that important to you?
It's important to me because when people don't have the knowledge, they say people, they perish for lack of knowledge. I try to educate. Sometimes when I talk to people and I tell them things, like you can come to the General Assembly and you can come in and listen to us in session. People say, what? I didn't know that. This is your house.
Yeah.
This is the people's house. Why would you not be able to? But people just didn't know. So I share that as much as I can. And then I tell them, if you want to know how I'm voting or anyone else, I tell them how to get to the website and they can look up votes and see what bills are being introduced, who introduced the bills, what the bills are about, all of that.
Yes.
And people are like, wow. So I spend a lot of time trying to educate.
Yes, you do.
If the laws are going to affect you,
Yes.
you should know about it.
You should know, Senator. Now, let me ask you this. Where can the people stay connected with you?
My My email address is Kandie, Kandie .Smith at NC for North Carolina, leg.gov. And that goes to my office, and we try to answer all emails. My phone number is 919-715-8363.
What about your newsletter?
My newsletter typically goes out every 2 weeks. And what I do is I try to update people on what's happening. I try to break it down because sometimes it can be very complicated. When you're reading those bills, you're looking like, whoa,
Yes.
wait a minute.
Yes.
It's kind of like when you read the Bible for thus and thou, and people are trying to figure that out. So what I do in my newsletter, I try to break things down. Some of the most pressing things that happen within those 2 weeks, I put that in my newsletter, and I try to make sure that people have access to it.
Yes.
And then they can scan the back or invite other people to join. And with Substack, the feature I like, one of the features I like the best is not only can you look at what I'm putting out, let's say this week, you can go back to my past emails. So anytime I can, I share information with them. I hear people say, I don't do politics. And not only is you advocating for what you want,
That's right.
you give us your tax dollars. Why would you not want to vote and tell us where they should be
Come
going?
on now, you got to know what's going on.
That's it. But some people say, well, I don't do that. Oh, so well, let me hold some. That's what I said. You don't care. You don't care where your money's going. Then they look at me. What you mean? I said, because you give us your money.
Right.
You give us when you pay taxes to the state of North Carolina.
Yes.
That's how we operate the state. How do you think we do it? They look at me and say, I didn't know that. I said, it is off your money.
Off your money.
You
Hard-earned
should-
money.
Right. So you should be voting for people that you agree with how they're going to spend that money,
That's right.
where their priorities are going to be. You can tell a lot about a person where they place their funds.
I'm learning that. In this
I tell them,
space.
follow the money.
That's right. I appreciate you, Senator, for stopping by and chatting with me today. I really do.
No problem.
We had a great conversation. I can't wait for the people to see it. Now, I want you to close out, Senator, strong now. Some words of wisdom or a piece of advice for the listeners.
Okay. Words of wisdom. In this day and age, there's a lot going on, and I can't say that there's a lot of good things. It's just a lot of things going on. So in order for you to figure out where you stand, it's important for you to be engaged. I don't want you to forget this, though. Proximity does not equal privilege. So because you have friends that you think, oh, they know this and they're cool and that's your friends. That has nothing to do with you. You have to fight that battle yourself. You have to be at that table. And I often say, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so with us as citizens of North Carolina, we got to be in this battle together. We got to fight and have each other's back. You have to hold people accountable, including me. We're not always going to agree on everything, but it's important for your voice to be heard. And I will always say your vote is your voice. And I thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Senator Smith. And thank you
you.
guys for watching.
Take care.